Let us now look into size as an optimization parameter. So we have here our presentation, and the title slide is something we kind of are not allowed to adjust, but then we look into that. Depending on what you want the audience to focus on, you can now play around with the sizes. You can, for example, increase the size of the text. You really want the main message that it works for document to be really emphasized. And furthermore, decrease the size of the image if you want people really to look on the text. I was quite happy with the document image being rather big here as well. Here you can also play around a bit. This is a special award, but maybe you want people to fully understand or fully focus on that it was actually the award you received. So we can play around with the size here and make the award even bigger. And so we can look critically through the slides to adjust sizes and whatsoever. Now this slide here is a slide which I didn't like already earlier on. I have a feeling we need to split it. The one really just mentioning that we will now in the future speak about experience. And then you say, so let us speak a little bit about my work experience or my experience I have achieved throughout my work. And we can remove this text here. And then we have 3 equally sized items here on the slide, and I think that's rather well. However, in the agenda, because we could really think of removing the text agenda as well, but it's useful to have the term agenda here. Quite often I see the common thing, right? The title is super big, agenda, and then comes the actual items. But is it important that people remember that you had an agenda? I mean, isn't it obvious that we have an agenda in our presentations somehow, specifically when they're long? So let's do the opposite. Now it's clear. We will speak first about the selected research areas and so on. And people who want to understand that that's about the agenda, they still see the word there. Maybe it was a bit too small. Let's see. Yeah, probably like that. And then we go on, critically looking through it. Here is again the question, what's more important, the text or the image? I actually think for this slide, the text is more important. So I definitely increase the size. And the image is just to have something to look at. Note, by the way, here for the image, I created 2 versions. I inverted the colors, but then the image looked strange, the squalor here when it was inverted. So I just cropped out the region with this koala image as well to have the koala naturally appearing. And now I remember the size I used was 40 here. So on the next slide, when I speak about the next network, I use the same size, 40. One can now play around with the layout to adjust the text appearing exactly on the same height and in the middle. I'll do it a little bit, but not perfect. And I will reduce the size of this network here as well to have roughly the same size of the other one. To perfectly align them, there are various guidelines and rulers. You can see the text is still jumping a bit. It bothers me a bit, so I will just move it a bit down here as well. And then it's way more aligned. Here's then a question again, is research focus 1 really important? Maybe not, because you will say it. You can put it here. We had already our images here adjusted. I made them really big. This one here, I want to fully adjust. So I select maybe everything in the slide and group it. Right-click group. And then we can adjust the size of the whole thing. By the way, when you adjust it, unfortunately, it becomes quite easily skewed. So you might want to do a right click, size and position, and lock the aspect ratio. And by that, when you change the size, the aspect ratio will remain the same. And what we wanted is, we want to have it really bigger. Here we go. So that it kind of spans over the whole page. And we can do the same with this one here. We select everything and group it. We should not forget to lock the aspect ratio, size and position. No, not save as picture. Size and position, lock aspect ratio. And then we make them also a bit bigger. And typically it's nice to centralize items in the slide, especially when you are in a generic setup. However, sometimes, for example, when you do a video recording and the slides are your background, like I also sometimes do, you move them a bit more to the left because this will be the space where you are standing. We go ahead. That one here, I'm still not so super happy with. And forgot to probably remove this text here as well. But I think in terms of size, we are quite okay. We realize that the overall size of that image here is rather small. So let's see if we can just increase it without messing around too much. Seems to work rather well. And let's move it to the center, as I mentioned earlier, and see what happens if I just make it a bit bigger. Looking good. Move this a bit more up to have a bit of a space. And then we might want to here adjust the text as well. And increase the text size of everything a bit. Some of them became now a bit messy. So play around until the classification appears in the right area. How to improve this graphic even further, we will do in the next step when it comes to the optimization of contrast. I will come back to that. That item here might be a bit too small. We had 40 before, so let's keep 40. Here again, we have a table. Only the numbers are rather small. Also in the next part, when we speak about contrast, we will improve that as well. But definitely that one here can become way smaller. It's just as a reference, maybe for people who look at the printout. Here we have a similar problem as we had before with the experience. So either we remove fully the experience, or we make two slides where we first say teaching experience, and then in the next slide we put our items. Or, and that's what I'm doing here now, we realize we inverse the sizes. So I think that brings me towards the end of this part. I just want to use the size 40 for most of my items. Centralize it nicely. And here these were graphs where we, in a way, cannot really adjust the sizes a lot. If you want that there is a take-home message to be taken from this graph, I can here, for example, say the main message of the slide should be, whoop, Sweden, here we see 1.3%. Sweden is in the middle field. And then we put that text here, maybe even one bigger. No, I don't think we can work more with size here. We will work with contrast in a moment. The biggest message needs to be the biggest item on your slides, and everything else needs to be smaller or even fully disappearing. Headlines like experiments 1 and 2 are less important than the outcome of your experiment. So make the outcome high, or whatever you deem to be important in this presentation.